Part 55. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 546. There was a sound outside the bamboo forest. He didn't want to go out, he just wanted to look at Yanj like this, looking at the old days, but watching the people outside the bamboo forest start to make a fortune, and no longer wanted to, he had to put her in bed. But as soon as he moved, Yan Song was sober, and he immediately rapped his neck, "Don't leave me." The food in the mouth can never let him fly. Listening to her voice panic, Bailey Xinjian busy soothed, "I do not leave you, someone is asking outside, I will see you. Then you hug me, I don't want to leave you." Yanj held his neck around his waist, laid his head on his shoulders, and felt the flow in the aorta of his neck and neck extremely fast. Delicious blood. Resolutely do not leave. Hundreds of miles of cigarettes were helpless, but they were very happy. I really wish she had depended on him all her life. He simply hugged her and went out. When you go out, don't forget to take the umbrella on the wall. Since she likes red clothes, she chose a red umbrella. Out of the bamboo forest, this stupid disciple outside Bai Yangxing's eyes narrowed his eyes and didn't even want to say anything. Although he came to Nandu late, he became the best Nandu disciple and became a master of the crowd. In his opinion, it was not because of how many geniuses he had, but because these disciples of the Nandu faction were really stupid. Yuan's Heshan, the 4th Division's younger brother, was injured by the horrible scourge of Bailey Xinjian. As soon as he lifted his eyes to see Bailey Xinjian, he immediately burst into tears and rushed towards the Bailey Xinjian. "Master, brother, you is this constipation? It took so long to come out. If you don't come out again, I will have to die in this bamboo forest." Others know that this bamboo forest is weird, so as far away as possible, Yuan's Heshan loves to hit him every time, but every time he is miserably abused by the formation in the bamboo forest. Yuan's Heshan hadn't thrown Bai Lixing's cigarette to his feet before he lifted his feet and kicked him away. "Brother, look at the injuries on my body, why can't you bear with me?" Yuan's Heshan drew no more than 2 words, his eyes suddenly motionless, glaring at the upper body of 100 miles of cigarettes. To be precise, it was the woman who was glaring and holding in her arms. "Master, brother," he stuttered, "I have something to tell you, but you need to be prepared." After waiting for 100 miles to respond, he continued tremblingly, "Brother, you have a red woman ghost lying on your body, so that your neck is tight. You run away, don't be strangled by her." Yuan's Heshan, who was saying this, was afraid that the female ghost would return to him, and he took a few steps back and kept a distance from Bailey. Bai Lixing Yan frowned and asked him, "What's the matter with you here?" Yuan's Heshan stared at Bailey Xinjian, seeing that Bai Lixing's one hand was holding a woman's waist. Yuan's Heshan's gaze was a bit complicated. His brother has always been a stranger, and now he is holding a woman. It was the sun that came out to the west. He still didn't believe it, and continued, "Brother, you have a woman in your arms." Bai Lixing smoked his eyes at him, "This is your teacher." In that look, full of disgust, it seemed that he was really fussed. Yuan's Heshan shivered and heard nothing, and said nothing and ran away. There are not many people in Nandu, and there are more than 20 people. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 547. At this moment everyone is gathered in the hall, listening to the daily sermons of Shizu. In fact, it is not preaching. The ancestor is nothing more than the things I encountered in those years when I was a priest. The Nandu faction lives by catching monsters and ghosts, so although the ancestors are a good opportunity for them to understand the ghosts, but without exception, all the people in the hall are sleepy, and they still return, so many snoring sounds could be heard. Yuan's Heshan plunged into the hall and shouted, "Not good, brother, he has a teacher." His voice was like a thunder blast on the ground. The drowsy people were all startled and stared at Yuan's Heshan, who was standing at the entrance of the main hall, but apparently they didn't understand what he meant. Yuan's Heshan stammered and continued to yell, "Master is holding a female ghost, isn't it? It's holding a woman, let me call the teacher." Everyone did not think that what he said was true. The person who smoked hundreds of miles, at a glance, was an ascetic person who did not eat fireworks. He was born with a woman. Someone joked and asked Yuan's Heshan, "A woman is light. You haven't touched it?" The questioning was the 5 masters of Baalixing. These people were all earlier than Baalixing. However, unfortunately, each one of them has its own advantages. The evil gates have learned a lot and they are trying to catch monsters. There is nothing to build on the ghost. Master is not with women. Yuan's Heshan, don't talk nonsense, let you call brother to solve what happened in Xiaoli town. Where have you been? This is the 3 sisters who talked about Bailey Xinjian. She has courted Bailey Xinjian countless times. In the past 10 years, even with the encouragement of her brothers and sisters, she even used her medicine. She still could sleep at home. Big brother. Now that she wants to start, it is estimated that the brother has a certain disease, so she would rather believe that the sow is on the tree than the brother. I'm talking about it, it's true. When reminded by Sister 3, Yuan's Heshan remembered that he had forgotten the business. Of course, he would not admit his mistake, just pointing to his own injury, saying, "I was injured by the formation in normal times, and my brother will show up immediately. But look at me today, I am almost poked by those dark arrows." Become a sieve, the big brother was late, not only ignored my injury, but also held a woman in front of me, ching me, and me. You did see the picture, really let me goosebumps, we the elder brother must be the evil. The needle fell quietly in the hall. Even the ancestor was squinting and dozing, opening and closing one eye to everyone. Seeing everyone silent, Yuan Ji shouted in a sincerity, hey, do you believe me? I really didn't lie to you. The hand of my brother is still on the girl's egg. The crowd frowned at him, seeming to despise him. Yuan's Heshan was so anxious to jump his feet. Did your eyes draw you guys? I know you can't accept such a blast of news, I can't accept it either. I used to think that my brother was practicing in that bamboo forest, and Ma Egg now knows that he is a golden house. Xiao, the mind is really deep enough, Sister 3, you have no chance at all. The woman in the arms of the big brother is 1 size smaller than you. Yuan's Heshan also wanted to say a few words that caught everyone's attention. He listened to the voice of a woman behind him and asked him, "Is the waist thin? Have you touched it?" You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Weipang. Chapter 548. The voice was soft. Yuan's Heshan listened to it, thinking about when a newcomer came to the martial arts, he didn't even know. He turned to look at where the sound was, and said with a smile, "How can I?" The words haven't finished, it's like being choked by someone's neck and stuck. The woman who talked was not the woman in the arms of the elder brother. The woman blinked, her big eyes rippling with autumn water, and asked him, "Why not say that?" Yuan's Heshan didn't even dare to look at brother's face, and stared discouragedly at his sisters and brothers. He hurried to the apse, "I have too many wounds on my body, and I will bleed and die if I don't get medicine. It hurts. It hurts." He barked a few times and a dog fell to the ground after eating shit. This fall, lying on the ground for a long time, could not get up. Everyone stood up, and bowed their heads and salutes, head. Of course, although I dropped my head, I still did not forget to secretly raise the eyelids and look at the woman in the arms of the head. Yanj hangs on Bailey Xinjian's neck, and his legs cross his waist all the way. No matter how he coaxes her, She has no intention of coming down. Fortunately, Yan's face is thick, and the skin of BeautifulFemaleLead is not thin. When he looked at it like this, he didn't mean to blush and heartbeat, but pursed his lips and glanced around everyone coldly. The temperature in the hall seemed to have dropped at this moment, and everyone felt that the back was a little cold, and they could not wait to run back to the place where they lived to wrap it around to protect them from the cold. Still the third teacher said, "Brother, the woman in your arms, who is she?" "She is my wife." Although the voice of BeautifulFemaleLead was cold, when it came to my wife, there was a bit of entanglement in the voice. After waiting for the third teacher to continue questioning, BeautifulFemaleLead said, "In the future, she will be your lady in charge. She is timid and afraid of being born. You do anti-scare her. She is my wife and husband and wife. Don't blame me for being unwilling. What a husband and wife together. Now look at it, it really is one." Everyone dared not speak. With AncientChina as the chicken who killed the chicken and Tamarin, everyone is very interested now. After all, the face of the head is still to be given. Even if they are curious about the head of the wife, there will be many opportunities to understand in the future, not at this time. Sister San, she couldn't bear it, she had to speak, and her sleeve was pulled by the brother on the side. The sight of BeautifulFemaleLead fell on the sister of the 3rd Division. "What happened to Xiaoli Town you said before?" Sister Sanchi was asked by him, forbearing the sorrow of being broken up in his heart and saying the right thing. "There were a few zombies in Xiaoli Town. A few of us went to see them before, but those few the zombies are in a climate, and we can't destroy them, we can only come back to find a master." BeautifulFemaleLead sneered sneerly, "I haven't learned anything for a whole day, and have come back to me for everything, for so many years, I haven't made any progress at all. After speaking, turn around and leave." The crowd didn't feel ashamed at all. When they saw them miles away, the 3 sisters kept busy and said, "Brother, brother, you must go. We received 100 or 2 silver in the town, and we couldn't kill the zombies. If anyone rushes up, the mountain gate will be trampled." BeautifulFemaleLead ignored these guys though. But it was the way down the mountain. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 549. As soon as BeautifulFemaleLead went out, he opened the red umbrella in his hand. Like Yanj, he both wore a red suit, and looking from a distance, the two seemed to merge into a red mushroom with an umbrella. Everyone in the hall was carrying their own heads in a red suit, and a lady in a couple's dress today. I do know who said something, "The head is not just married yesterday, it's too stingy. Marriages do nothing. Come on, we have to give gifts if the head is doing things. This is a past thing, we don't have to worry about giving gifts to the head. That makes sense." Another said, "I haven't seen what the lady in charge looks like. Have you seen it?" "I didn't see my face, but my body was really one size smaller than the 3rd teacher. No wonder the head has always refused to accept the 3rd teacher. It turns out that the 3rd teacher is too fat and does not meet the aesthetics of the head, hey." The sister of the 3 teachers, who had been suffocating all the time, heard everyone's voice, and wow cried. She used to be a smaller one, but recently she gained weight by turning her grief into appetite. She didn't look for anybody. The brother has already looked for her, and she is so inconsiderate. "Tonight, I will eat 2 more bowls of rice to comfort her little injured heart." Out of the hall, BeautifulFemaleLead asked the song lowly, "Do you want to stay on the mountain or go down with me?" Yanj's answer did not hesitate, "I want to follow you, where you go, I go." He was pleased by this, his lips were slightly raised, his eyes were softer, and he hugged her tightly. He asked again, "Hungry? Would you like some blood?" Yanj hesitated and shook his head, "The body wants to drink blood, but I don't want to drink it, I want to quit blood. Can you not seduce me with blood in the future?" "It doesn't matter," he said, touching her ink, "it will be very painful to abstain, if you want to drink, you can bite me, I will be fine. Yanj choked on his neck full, this guy even tempted her to learn badly. Humph. Is she so easy to compromise? I can't bear to bite you, Yanj said, and he struck his rolling throat, I can't bear you bleeding. He hugged her tightly and never spoke again. He heard her ask, is it tiring to hold me? Not tired, he said. It won't be tiring for a lifetime. Yanj smiled and pecked his chin, then I will rely on you forever. He rolled his throat and looked at her, smiled and crooked eyebrows. The tenderness in her eyes enveloped her, well, okay. In this lifetime, I haven't had to run. Even if he broke her leg, he had to keep her beside him for a lifetime. Yanj certainly didn't know what Bailey Yanyan thought. She asked him, did you not say last time that I am not your wife? A few moments later, Bai Lixing immediately said, we originally had a marriage contract, but we did anti-worship at the end. I was afraid you would regret it. But now that you have a husband and wife, presumably you won't anti-regret it again. It's okay to send things to the right and left, and it's okay to make up later. Oh, Yanj said, why didn't you worship? You relapsed and died of illness the day before my marriage. Yan Song raised his head and yelled at him, what later? Later, the head of the Nandu faction said that they could revive you, so I brought you here. In a fluttering sentence, he exhausted all the 10 years of torment. Yan Ji kissed his Li after my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gong Wei Pang. Chapter 550. No, he frowned, looking at her, you are not a zombie, you still have a soul, and you have flesh and blood, you are just slightly different from others. It's a zombie, but it's more advanced than a zombie. He described Yanj's situation very well now, and Yanj laughed, anyway, it's a zombie. She squeezed his cheeks, I became a zombie, don't you dislike it? He shook his head and said truthfully, I'm afraid you would abandon me. She became a zombie, her face stayed at the best time, but he grew old every moment. In the past, he was very sad. He and her were so old, so afraid he would be laughed at by her, but now he is very fortunate. Fortunately, she is 8 years older than him. We'll call his father. Yanj took his neck and took the umbrella handle with her other hand. She pursed her lips and said, your blood tastes good, and your body tastes good too. I won't disapprove you. She talked seriously, he listened seriously, though his heart was relieved. But she was very worried. She doesn't hate him now because he still has a strong body. If 10 years later, he can't satisfy her, it is estimated that by then, she will miss her 3,000 faces. There are several villages under the mountain, these people all know the miles of smoke. It was during breakfast that the village smoked smoke and the fireworks were full of smoke. Seeing Balik Sinjian holding a woman, although everyone was curious, but because of respect, they didn't dare to ask, only to leave the road and silently watch Balik Sinjian leave. They thought that the woman in the arms of smoking was another one whom he had saved. Walked 2 villages to a town. Balik Sinjian bought a carriage, which is the best carriage in town, but in fact, the carriage is small and simple. He was afraid she would be disgusted, but she didn't, she sat in the carriage nicely, raised the curtain and looked outside curiously. Seeing Bailey Xinjian sitting in the car seat to catch the car, Yan Song simply sat beside him and nestled on him. He said softly to her, it's windy outside and the sun, go in the car. He had previously bought a few cloths and put several layers on the carriage, and she would not be exposed to the sun when she was sitting in the carriage. Yan Ji heard the words, put the bucket he bought for her on his head, opened the umbrella again, and then continued to crook on him. Although the helplessness of the 100 miles of cigarettes was helpless, the heart was warm, and I just felt happy. He drove the carriage and slowly left the town. It was already evening in Xiaoli town. Xiaoli town was a relatively large town nearby. Although there was a zombie incident, I knew that zombies would not appear in the daytime, so there were still many people in the town. Blackened took Yanj to take a trip to the bazaar. Whenever he arrived at the jewelry stand, he would stop and ask if she liked it. Yanj shook his head. Sue became a zombie, and she didn't even think about these jewelry clothes. She was thinking about him. As long as you can hold him and smell the smell at all times, Yanj is completely satisfied. But Blackened still bought her a lot. Blackened is also a well-known Taoist priest. He looks handsome and has a lot of effort. Many people still have his paintings hanging in their homes to ward off evil townhouses. His journey has always been the object of everyone's attention. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 551. In the past, the smoke of 100 miles was a black suit, and it was cold everywhere. Even if it looks good, the cold breath on the face makes people look dazed. But today, he changed into a red shirt and said, holding a woman in his arms. The woman wore a bucket hat. Although everyone could not see the woman's appearance, the abnormality of Blackened was enough for them to be surprised. An old man who thinks he has a little friendship with Blackened asked Blackened, Mr. Bailey, who is this in your arms? Miles of cigarettes answered, it's my wife. As soon as the words were told, the whole town knew it in a blink of an eye. It's not clear whether the Taoist leader can marry a wife, but a man such as Bailey Taoist would marry a wife. At the same time, everyone was surprised to congratulate him and wanted to see the new wife of Daolai. However, the new daughter-in-law did not say it. The way that the daughter-in-law took care of her daughter-in-law was as if she did not want the new daughter-in-law to see anyone. Anyone who has had the benefit of smoking for hundreds of miles, immediately gave their own eggs, locust nectar, potatoes and other sundries as a new wedding gift to Mr. Berry. Blackened didn't refuse. I don't know who gave him a back basket, and the back basket was full of gifts from everyone. Of course, there were still a few young girls on the way, sadly running up to Blackened and saying to him, I wish you long happiness. As soon as the flowers fell, they wept and ran away. Yanj, these people like you. Miles of Smoke did not answer. The Nandu faction is just one of his all-rounders who can catch monsters and chase ghosts. Within a few hundred miles, everyone shouted at him and liked him because he would catch ghosts and monsters. He asked her, don't you bask? Is it uncomfortable? Yanj shook his head, it's okay, not uncomfortable. The zombies only came out at night and entered Xiaoli town. Blackened and Yanj first lived in the only inn in the town. In a small town, the inn is relatively simple. The smoke of miles is used to living, but the woman in her arms, Jin Xiaoye, has never lived in such a humble place. He looked down at her, you wait here, I'll buy some new sheets and quilt back. Yanj tightened his neck, I don't need to sleep, anyway. She paused, rubbing his stomach and saying, you're hungry, eat something first. Along the way, she heard his belly ring a few times. Blackened's face was reddish, he nodded, and asked Xiao Er to bring the food into the room before eating. Yanji didn't need to eat. Although she came down from the bosom of smoking, she still didn't leave him. When he ate, she looked at him with her chin supported. Blackened asked her, want to drink blood? Yan Song shook his head. He handed her arm to her mouth. It's nothing to drink. Yanj continued to shake his head, my cultivation is the essence of the absorbed moon, and my blood will hinder my cultivation. This is true, but the flesh and blood of Blackened is pure, so it is an exception. So it is. Blackened Yan quickly withdrew his hand, and said to the song with a look of admiration, it's amazing, how did you learn to cultivate? I don't know, Yanj said. In fact, cultivation is not that difficult, as long as you have the patience to sun the moon every day. It sounds simple enough, but his daughter-in-law can not bear to drink blood, and no one can match her for this perseverance. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 552. Yan shifted the topic and asked him, "How did I make a relationship with you?" Bailixinjian had already organized the language in his heart about this matter since he and his wife had been acting with Yanj. After hearing the words, he almost returned without thinking, "You saw me handsome at the beginning, forcing me to marry me." Yanj stared at him. Big eyes, disbelief, and indignation. He smiled lowly, and stretched out his hands to rub her black hair. "It was because I saw you from afar that I liked you, and I asked you to marry you." Yan Ji blinked, but this guy still didn't tell the truth. Obviously in the host's memory, the two did not know each other, and getting married was an international marriage. She shook her head decisively. "You can like it when you meet?" "I don't believe it." She dragged his long hair. "Don't pinch my hair, answer well." It was her hair that was obviously ridiculous. Bailixingyan had never seen such a vivid and lively woman, and she felt so happy that she could not hold her heart. He simply reached out and hugged her in his arms. He pecked her forehead and nose for a long time before saying, "When I first saw you, you were also wearing a red coat, very beautiful and imposing. I asked your name, and you answered me that only your husband is entitled to know your name." The candles in the room were flickering, and the orange candle light was softly scattered on her face, adding a little charming to her pale and bloodless face. He looked foolish, and his voice slowed even more. "You were the same at that time as you are now, without any changes, very beautiful and beautiful. In fact, it was not pleasant to meet the two for the first time." He sneaked into her house as a spy of the enemy country. Everyone said that the regent was ugly and fat, fierce and cruel, but at that glance, he saw a fairy-like beauty in the princess' house. A man wants to climb onto her couch, and her slender fingers trace the men's features coldly. "My bed, only my husband can climb it." What kind of thing do you think have such a thought? The man was killed in public, and she sat high up, looking at the execution ground indifferently. At that time, he was discovered by the people in the princess mansion that he almost didn't reveal himself. He left the princess mansion with injuries, and not only returned without success, he almost broke himself. Nor did he return without power. He suffered from Acacia because of this, and she missed her day and night. When the two countries came to an end with good names, when the man stood out, Man Chao Wenwu looked at him with a look on his face. Everyone felt that he was loyal to his country and sacrificed for his country. But only he knew what kind of woman he was going to marry. He thought, fortunately, no one knew her. He went to her country with joy, but met again, but life and death. Why did she die? For 10 years, he thought he had forgotten everything, but remembered the events of that year. He still felt very uncomfortable. Holding her tightly in his arms, he said, "Hong Yan, it's good to marry you. So good. I can hold her like this and have no other choice in this life." The Song of Songs strangled his neck and was about to go further, and the knock on the door rang. It was night, and the zombies hiding in the town came out. The mayor waited with everyone outside the door. Everyone shivered, and they dared not go anywhere. They only hoped that the miles of smoke would protect them. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 553. With so many big light bulbs sticking at the door, even if the mile of smoke is about to move, he can only hold back. When going out, Yanj relied on him as usual. She whispered in his ear, "I know where those zombies are." Bai Lixing turned his head to look at her in surprise. Yan Ji blinked at him, showing off, and said, "I can order them." She is considered a high-level zombie. These zombies who have not yet given birth to her are nothing in her eyes. Bai Lixing Yan was not happy. He touched her head, solemnly said, "Don't tell anyone about this." He paused and said, "You can't show it in front of others." When he said this, he couldn't hide the look of worry. Yan Ji nodded, and she understood the meaning of smoking, but in fact she did not intend to tell others, so she did not hesitate to answer, "Okay." Seeing the bliss she responded to, Bai Lixing was even more worried. She did not think long ago, but now she is a simple and innocent little girl who lost her past memories. He is really afraid of being beaten and she will be fooled. It seems that I still have to look at her in the future. Hundreds of miles of cigarettes gave the few charms in the parcel to the villagers outside the door, holding a song and walking around Xiaoli town, entered a run-down dilapidated dangerous house courtyard. No need for him to bother to find it, the people in his arms offered him treasures and generally told him the route. This made him both joy and worry. As soon as he entered the courtyard, more than a dozen shadows rushed towards the mile. The sword of the 100 miles of smoke could not be pulled out, and the words in his arms roared low. The dark shadows seemed to be fixed, and they did not move. At the same time, Bai Lixing's ears moved and he jumped onto the roof with his words. This house has been in disrepair for a long time, and no one has lived there for a long time. This leap forward is like the last straw that crushed the camel, and the roof collapsed. Fortunately, Bai Lixing responded quickly, stepped on a beam, took a leap, and returned to the yard. With the sound of the collapse of the house, a scream came at this moment. This sound is very familiar. Wu Tianyi's. Hundreds of miles of smoke stared at the dusty house ruins, and there was a shadow of murderous anger in his eyes. Yan Ji whispered to him, "These zombies are not poisoned by corpses, they are kept by corpses, but the time is short and the materials for corpses are rough. Even if you do not come, these zombies will not live for a few days." The horrifying smoke of the word "keep dead" was shocked and furious. How the man in his arms came to life, he couldn't be clearer. He left the Nandu faction with the former Nandu faction verbal agreement. One was to look at her, and the other was to feel that if the Nandu faction's resurrection approach took a wrong way, it would lead the people. Here comes an unimaginable catastrophe. Therefore, after he went to the capital to repair a copy of the book, he didn't even return to the capital, he nestled in the Nandu faction, gave up everything he had, and concentrated on learning the art of catching ghosts and monsters. What Bai Lixing didn't expect is that the former boss did not follow this crooked road, but his son embarked on the crooked road. Waiting for the dust to settle, he said to Wu Tianyi, who shrunk in the ruins, "Come out, otherwise, this ruin is your burial place today." One leg of Wu Tian was broken by the room beam. He dragged one leg out of the ruins, looked up and stared fiercely at the smoke. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 554. Wu Tianyi did not expect that Bai Lixing would go out with a song and listen to Bai Lixing's words, and his heart was even more angry. Bai Lixing, everything you gave my father to you today, you will revenge and shameless. Bai Lixing slightly bowed his head, facing his stunned eyes, his voice was indifferent, as a Nandu faction, you did such an injustice, today I will clean the portal for Nandu faction. Do you dare? Wu Tianyi screamed in shock and fear, if you kill me, the person in your arms will also die. She is not as dead as me. If she is dead, she will die. Eternal life must not be born. The sword of the 100 miles of smoke has reached Wu Tianyi's eyebrows, Wu Tianyi shouted with his eyes closed. Although he noticed the killing and coldness in his close range, he was scared to open his eyes. Instead, it continued to say, why do you think she woke up? That's because our family's ancestral urns are divided into sons and daughters. She and I ate one each, and continued with my anger. Her life, she will die out when I die, and will never enter reincarnation. If you don't believe it, Try to stab me with a sword. I'm not afraid of death. I'm still a good man after 18 years, but if you are a beautiful woman in your arms, if she dies, it will be another 800 years, and she will appear again. He said at the end. He opened his eyes and stared at Bailixing Yan and laughed. You can kill me if you have the ability, I tell you, don't say kill me. If I get hurt, I will be 10 hundreds of times appeared on her. Believe it or not, see if her leg is broken. Zombies don't feel pain, but she is an exception. I feel pain. She can feel it 10 times more. Bailixing Yan kept listening to him with a cold face. At this moment he heard him say that, although he still didn't move his eyebrows, his sword-holding hand retracted the sword and touched the leg bones of the words. Her hand pressed against his hand, smoke. She wants to stop him. Her actions were more affirming Wu Tianyi's words. Bailixing Yan held her hand backhand, he said nothing. A few steps walked in front of Wu Tianyi, he looked at Wu Tianyi with a look of confusion. The next moment, he lifted his feet and struck Wu Tianyi's body. Wu Tian passed out with a glance. Hundreds of miles of smoke stood here, not moving for a long time. He didn't bow his head, but he could feel that when Wu Tian passed out, he fell asleep in his arms. The joy of his 2 days was shocked by the shock of the matter before him. How could this be? How could this be? The bottom of his heart was like a huge hole, with a bitter chill in it, which made him tremble all the time. Destroy all the zombies in the yard and burn them. Bailixing Yan held Yan Song in one hand and carried Wu Tianyi in one hand. Returned to the Nandu faction overnight. There was no cellar in the bamboo forest, but Wu Tianyi could be placed elsewhere. He could not rest assured that he had smoked 100 miles. He simply made another bamboo prison overnight and soaked half of Wu Tianyi's body in the water. After doing all this, he cleaned himself and Yan's body and changed into a refreshing robe. Yan Ji's leg bone was broken, and he couldn't handle it. It was still Wu Tianyi's leg bones that he connected to, and then he went to answer the Song's leg bones. Her health is all based on Wu Tianyi's health. This cognition made Bailixing's heart of cigarettes more and more cold, like being raged by snow and ice. After my death, the villain blackened again. Author, Ben Gongwei Pang. Chapter 555. However, the more anxious my heart became, the more calm my face became. He couldn't panic, he told himself over and over again. He must find a solution. He must not let her life be associated with Wu Tianyi. Before Yanj woke up, Bailixing Yan held her like that, staring at her eyebrows without blinking. His expression was stunned from the beginning, but gradually became firm in the end. He will never let her be restrained by such a person as Wu Tianyi, even if he tries his best to recover the lost treasure. So after a brief sting, he found out the books on Kimon's armor that he had snatched, and looked at them one by one. It was not until the evening that Yanj was finally sober again. And Wu Tianyi also woke up, and he could shout, because Bailixing put his bamboo prison on the ground again, tied his hands and feet in large characters, and blocked his mouth, let alone suicide, he couldn't even cry. Yanj stunned the hundreds of miles of cigarettes with a strong laughing face, and immediately said, "You don't have to worry about it. I should get rid of the trouble caused by tapeworms when I practice for a while. But then, I don't believe it. I want to find a confusing nine-tailed fox in the course of the 100-day journey. I have thought of countless ways to try to solve it, tempt Wu Tian to say something in his heart, not sure this guy knows how to deal with it. Nine-tailed fox? Speaking of which, Yanj seems to have one here." Yanj raised his eyebrows and summoned Ninetail immediately. "Are there any ways that you can confuse people to say what they say?" Ninetailed is rarely needed by the words, and immediately said, "Yes, yes, I have countless such ways." "Words, teach me." Ninetail. He embarrassed and said, "You are not a family of nine-tailed foxes and you cannot learn." Yanj asked the cub, "Can this guy bring out space for fans?" The chicken said reluctantly, he is an upgrade package rewarded to you by the system. You can take him wherever you want, just recognize the master. Yan Ji suddenly disliked, no other way. Zhu Wei, who hasn't had time to protest yet, Miss does not want to recognize him, this is to turn him into her man. Chicken, no. Yanj sighed, then recognize the Lord. Big deal will be lifted later. The formation in the bamboo forest was triggered again, and Bai Lixing was impatient with his heart, but he had to go out and take a look. However, when I saw it, I couldn't help it. I wondered where to find the nine-tailed fox. In a blink of an eye, a nine-tailed fox ran into his formation. He carried the nine-tailed fox, who was wounded by the break-in, into the bamboo gallery outside the house. This nine-tailed fox should have been badly injured, and 9 tails were left, but even so, the nine-tailed fox was different from the ordinary fox, and he recognized it at a glance. When applying the medicine to the nine-tailed fox, Bai Lixing Yan smiled and said to Yanj, "This is a nine-tailed fox. We have a way to pry open Wu Tianyi's mouth." Yanj's head rested on his lap, and he sniffed lazily. Wu Tianyi has been involved with her. He can't torture, let alone spit out what he knows by using crooked doors that will hurt people's brain. After all, if his brain hurts, Yan's song will be worth the damage. Nine-tailed fox's deceiving method is the best way to say it.